Welcome to Lao Ming's channel. In the warm ponds or swimming pools during summer, everyone enjoys diving in the water, but a potentially deadly killer may be approaching you. It's a terrifying amoeba, a type of protozoan. It has a unique flagellum that allows it to swim from the nasal cavity to the brain. Inside the brain, it transforms into another form, growing tube-like structures similar to pseudopodia. It finally unfolds its deadly apparatus and begins to devour our brain cells and nerve tissues. People will experience headaches, fever, nausea, hallucinations, and eventually seizures and confusion. Patients usually die within 1 to 2 weeks after symptoms appear, with a terrifying mortality rate of 97%. This is the brain-eating amoeba that has been appearing in recent years. What exactly is the brain-eating amoeba? Humanity faces the threat of brain-eating parasites, but no one expected it to come from something as simple as water pipelines. No one imagined that this would be a killer pipeline. From when the water pipelines were fixed 19 years ago, people gradually lost consciousness. However, the strange thing is that the deceased were usually children and teenagers, and no one knew the reason. This situation caught the attention of Malcolm Fuller, a pathologist at Adelaide Children's Hospital. When he opened up the brain of a deceased patient, he was shocked by what he saw. The brain had been severely damaged, with part of it appearing to have been eaten away. Fuller was determined to conduct further research. He took a slice of the brain, and here is a photo of that slice. You can clearly see many holes appearing in the brain tissue. What caused this? After the next patient died, Fuller immediately opened up the brain. Under the microscope, humans saw this vicious killer for the first time, a single-celled organism. Its body could constantly grow flagella. What are flagella? They are temporary projections formed by single-celled organisms to help them move or capture prey. Inside the cell, there are small protein fibers called actin that rapidly gather and push the cell membrane outward, forming what looks like feet to help the organism move or engulf food. This structural flexibility and high mobility are astonishing. Don't underestimate this single-celled organism. It's a clever result of natural evolution. Fuller believed it was similar to an amoeba, and since he was the first to discover it, he named it Naegleria fowleri. But that name was hard to remember, so most people today call it the brain-eating amoeba. In the 1980s, scientists began investigating how the brain-eating amoeba got into people's brains. This mystery remained unsolved. Professor Dennis Kyle from the University of South Florida began researching the amoeba's invasion process. As mentioned earlier, the brain-eating amoeba was first discovered in Spencer Gulf, Australia. All the patients used the same water supply system. Pathologists suspected that the water might have been contaminated. When they tested the water, they indeed found the amoeba. The question was, why were there only 20 cases over 20 years when thousands of families used this water? It turns out that the brain-eating amoeba doesn't attack everyone indiscriminately. Only a few are infected, meaning it must have a specific invasion pattern that we haven't figured out yet. Kyle also started by looking into the water. All the deceased patients from Florida had one thing in common. They had swum before falling ill. Kyle wondered if the amoeba might be entering through the nasal cavity. After conducting a series of experiments on brain slices, he discovered the amoeba's strange invasion method. The brain-eating amoeba is a type of amoeba, and as its name suggests, it can change form. When faced with harsh environments like food shortages or cold and dry conditions, it contracts into a resilient capsule, a form called a cyst. In this state, it stays dormant, conserving energy. When the amoeba enters the nasal cavity, it senses a change in the environment, temperature, moisture, and nutrients, so it transforms into its second form, the flagellated stage. In this form, it grows a flagellum, allowing it to swim quickly in search of an ideal location. It then travels along the olfactory nerves, passing through the cribriform plate to reach the brain, where it transforms into its third stage, the trophozoite stage, which is the most dangerous. At this point, the amoeba extends its deadly appendages, unique structures that release enzymes to dissolve brain cells, causing tissue damage, and then rapidly devouring red blood cells and neurons. To move more quickly in the brain, the trophozoite can revert to its flagellated stage. In 2016, 16-year-old Sebastian De Leon had just graduated from high school and was looking forward to a relaxing summer. After swimming in a small pond, he developed a severe headache within 2 days. By the third day, his condition worsened. He couldn't tolerate light, felt nauseous, and had a high fever of 40 degrees Celsius. Initially, doctors thought he had bacterial meningitis, but his neck was soft, unlike typical cases. A spinal tap revealed no bacteria, only a high number of white blood cells, indicating a severe infection. Doctors eventually discovered the brain-eating amoeba near the white blood cells. The brain-eating amoeba cases are rare and often misdiagnosed as meningitis. Fortunately, in De Leon's case, the doctors were able to identify it in time. Though he survived, the damage to his brain was severe, requiring him to relearn how to walk and talk. By 2022, no cure had been found. The brain-eating amoeba thrives in warm freshwater environments. It cannot survive in seawater, and drinking water contaminated with it poses no risk unless the amoeba enters the nasal cavity. Most infections occur in children and teenagers due to the underdeveloped cribriform plate in their nasal cavities. To prevent infection, experts recommend using nose plugs when swimming, avoiding swimming in untreated water, and avoiding stirring up sediment from pond or lake bottoms. Let me know if you'd like to adjust anything in the translation.